Welcome to Short Stories, a production of the Language Center at the National Taichung University of Science and Technology. Today's story is derived from the opera Tosca by Giacomo Puccini. It premiered in Rome on the 14th of January, 1900. It's a historical drama set in Rome in the year 1800. There's a lot of historical background to this story, but all you really need to know is that Italy was divided between the pro-Napoleon faction and the anti-Napoleon faction. As for the story itself, it's a fictional melodrama that focuses on the decisions, both good and bad, of a naive young woman named Tosca. When the opera premiered, critics thought the story was rather predictable and dull, but musically, the opera was superb. It's probably some of Puccini's best work. So, if you have a chance, take a listen to this opera. This story has been modified from its original version. It has been formatted to fit this screen. Vocabulary: accomplice. Accomplice. The police suspect that the robbers had an accomplice. At large. At large. The robbers are still at large. Battle. Battle. Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo. Interrogate. Interrogate. The police interrogated the suspect. Nave. Nave. The priest walked down the nave of the church. Pull the wool over someone's eyes. Pull the wool over someone's eyes. Greg pulled the wool over their eyes and convinced them to invest in his fraudulent scheme. Sardonically. Sardonically. The comedian joked sardonically about the upcoming election. Sympathizer. Sympathizer. Vladimir Putin has many sympathizers outside of Russia. The story. On a June morning in the year 1800, a painter named Mario Cavaradossi was working on his latest creation in the church of Sant'Andrea della Valle in Rome. "Who's that supposed to be?" asked the priest as he walked up to the painting to give it his inspection. Mario smiled and replied, "It's Mary Magdalene." The priest harumphed and said, "She looks like that blonde woman who comes in to pray every afternoon." He then frowned and walked away, leaving Mario to continue his work. Out of the corner of his eye, Mario caught a glimpse of a figure moving in the shadow of the statue of the Virgin Mary. "Psst, Mario, it's me, Cesare," whispered the figure from the darkness. Mario turned his head and squinted at the man in the shadow. "Cesare, is it really you?" Cesare Angelotti emerged from the coolness of the shadow to give his old friend a warm hug. "It's so good to see you again," exclaimed Mario. "Did my sister give you my message?" whispered Cesare. Mario nodded his head and handed him a covered basket. He peeked inside and said, "Excellent. She packed me some food and a disguise." Turning his attention to Mario's painting, he said, "Hey, that looks a lot like her." Mario admitted that there was a harmony of appearance and added, "I plan to use my Tosca as the model for the Virgin Mary." Both the woman in the painting and Cesare's sister had long golden hair and pale blue eyes, but the mouth and nose were slightly different. Cesare was quick to point this out, to which Mario responded, "It's not supposed to be an exact copy. It's more of a complementary reflection." Cesare turned his attention back to the important matter he wanted to discuss. "Did you prepare a place for me to hide?" he asked. Mario nodded again and answered in a voice that was a little too loud, "Let's wait until it's dark. Then I can sneak you into the garden shed of my villa." Cesare put his finger to his lips and whispered, "Shh, someone might hear you." Just then, the two men heard a woman call from the doorway of the church. "Mario, is that you?" Cesare quickly disappeared back into the shadows, while Mario continued his painting, as if nothing had happened. The woman walked down the nave and, upon reaching Mario, asked, "Who were you talking to just now?" Mario stammered and replied, "No one, my dear. I was just talking to myself." Tosca frowned and said, "You're a terrible liar, Mario. Why am I still dating you?" Mario laughed and answered, "Because I am a terrible liar, my dear. You know that I could never pull the wool over your eyes. I'm so bad at it." Tosca hugged Mario's arm and gave him a little kiss on the cheek. Turning her attention to the painting, she said, "Who's that supposed to be?" Mario explained it was Mary Magdalene. Tosca tilted her head to one side and said, "It looks like that woman I see in here sometimes. What's her name? Angelotti?" Mario laughed and patted Tosca's hand. While Mario and his girlfriend were admiring the painting, a young boy ran into the church, shouting, "It's over! It's over!" The couple turned and asked, "What's over?" The boy held up a newspaper and exclaimed, "The Battle of Marengo! Napoleon was defeated. You can read all about it in this morning's paper, sir. It's just 5 cents. Mario paid the boy and began reading from the front page. "According to initial reports," read Mario, "the French line was broken at around 2:30 p.m. on June 14th. Austrian Field Marshal von Meles reports that the French are withdrawing from the battlefield." Tosca looked at Mario worriedly and asked, "Is this good news or bad news?" Mario was silent for a moment, and then he replied, "It's news." He then excused himself and headed toward the restroom. Inside the privacy of the restroom, Mario spoke with Cesare. "I heard," he exclaimed. "This is very bad news," admitted Mario. "We need to get you out of here right now. Take the key to my villa. I'll meet you there." The two men then went their separate ways. Meanwhile, Tosca stood in the center of the church looking at the half-finished painting of Mary Magdalene with slight disapproval. Her musings were interrupted by the loud clanging of the church door. "Excuse me," said the gravelly voice of the uniformed man who entered the church. "I require your assistance. I am looking for this man. Have you seen him?" Another man, who appeared to be the first man's assistant, held up a drawing. Tosca was startled by the suddenness of this inquisition and didn't know what to say, except, "What's going on?" The uniformed man clicked his heels together and answered, "I am Captain Scarpia. My officers and I are searching for an escaped criminal named Cesare Angelotti." Tosca took another look at the wanted poster and asked, "What did he do?" Captain Scarpia took the poster in his hands and said in a sneering voice, "He is a French sympathizer and an enemy of the Roman people." He then ordered his men to search the church from top to bottom. While his men were conducting their search, Scarpia took the time to interrogate the priest and Tosca. He learned that Mario Cavaradossi and the Marchesa Angelotti were often seen in the church together. "They are his accomplices, no doubt," he muttered to himself. When he learned of Tosca's relationship to Mario, he got an idea. "That's a lovely painting of the Marchesa, don't you think?" he said to Tosca. Tosca replied, "Mario told me it was supposed to be Mary Magdalene." Scarpia laughed sardonically and said, "He would tell you that, wouldn't he?" He then started questioning Tosca about Mario's relationship with the Marchesa. "They aren't in a relationship," she said doubtfully. Scarpia laughed again and said, "Don't be a fool. The priest has told us that he often sees them here together, speaking softly in the shadows, and right under the very nose of Christ himself." Tosca's heart started to crack as Scarpia spun a web of lies about her lover. "If you see your boyfriend again, let us know," said Scarpia before leaving the church. Outside the church, one of Scarpia's officers, Spoletta, asked, Why did you let her go, sir? I thought you wanted to take her in for more questioning. Scarpia smiled and answered, Why take her in when she could lead us straight to Cavaradossi and Angelotti? Follow her and report back to me. That night, as Scarpia sat at his desk in the Palazzo Farnese, scribbling his signature on death warrants, Spoletta returned and saluted his boss. Mario Cavaradossi has been captured, sir, but Cesare Angelotti remains at large. Scarpia leaned back in his chair and ordered Mario to be brought in. Two junior officers dragged the battered Mario into the room and stood him up in front of Scarpia's desk. I have only one question for you. If you answer truthfully, you will be free to go, said Scarpia calmly. Where's Cesare Angelotti? Mario spat on the floor and refused to answer. Good, exclaimed Scarpia. I like it when they put up a fight. Spoletta, fetch Tosca immediately. When Tosca was brought into the room, she was shocked and horrified to see her beloved Mario in such a poor state. What have you done to him? She exclaimed as she wiped the blood from Mario's mouth with her handkerchief. I have done very little so far, miss, Scarpia said coolly, and all his troubles will end if you can tell me what I need to know. Where is Cesare Angelotti? Tosca looked at Mario and then at Scarpia with fear in her eyes. How would I know? She exclaimed. Scarpia ordered the guards to take Mario to the next room for further questioning. Have a seat, miss, Scarpia said politely. Would you like some tea or coffee? Tosca sat down, uncertain of what was about to happen. I want you to listen carefully as my men torture Cavaradossi slowly until you tell me the answer to my question. Tosca tried to run, but was restrained by the strong hands of Spoletta. She was forced to sit and listen to her lover's screams. Did you hear anything at all that might give you a clue of the whereabouts of Angelotti? Asked Scarpia calmly, as if the cries of agony from the neighboring room were actually the gentle chirping of birds. Tosca racked her brain for an answer. She started crying and banging her own head with her fists. This can all end if you give me an answer, said Scarpia as he took a sip of coffee. The garden shed, she finally blurted out. I heard him say something about hiding in a garden shed of his villa. Now let him go, please. Scarpia snapped his fingers, and Spoletta went into the neighboring room. The sounds of torture ceased, as much to Tosca's relief as Mario's. The guards dragged Mario back into the room. This time he was even bloodier than before. Tosca let out a small scream and ran to comfort her lover, but Spoletta pulled her back. Scarpia stood up and walked over to the bruised Mario and gloated. We finally got what we needed, and it's all thanks to your dear Tosca. Mario was too weak to answer, but if he did, he would have expressed his deep sadness over the loss of his friend and the damage done to his relationship with Tosca. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Spoletta answered it and let in another officer. I have an urgent message for the captain, declared the officer as he handed Scarpia an official report. All eyes and ears turned toward the messenger as he delivered some surprising news. At about 5:30 p.m. on June 14th, French reinforcements arrived on the battlefield at Marengo. The Austrians were routed, and now the French army is marching toward Rome. Scarpia's smug smile disappeared from his face. He was silent as he tore open the official report with his knife and read its contents. Mario started laughing and said, Your days are numbered, pig. The Republic shall return. Scarpia growled and ordered Mario to be executed at dawn. He then ordered everyone except Tosca out of the room. Now that they were alone in the room, Scarpia's attitude toward Tosca softened. I'm not really a bad guy, he said quietly as he approached Tosca. I'm just doing my job. Now, it appears that my job will soon be at an end, so I'm willing to make a deal with you. If you agree to marry me, I'll let Mario live." Tosca couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You'll drop the charges?" she asked. "Not exactly," replied Scarpia. "I've already signed his death warrant, and I am bound by oath to fulfill it. However, I can arrange for a mock execution, ensuring that the letter of the law is satisfied while preserving Mario's life." Tosca stood silently as she desperately tried to make sense of the situation. Rationally, she knew that she couldn't trust anything that Scarpia said, but emotionally, she was desperate to save Mario's life. Scarpia stepped closer and whispered, "Time is running out, Tosca. What's your decision?" Tosca still hesitated, so Scarpia upped the pressure by saying, "Mario is heading to the execution square because you led us to him. Now is your chance to redeem yourself by saving his life." Tosca's hands gripped her skirt tightly as she said, "I'll do it." Scarpia smiled triumphantly and called for Spoletta. He whispered into his ear and sent him out again. "This calls for a celebration," announced Scarpia as he went to his desk and poured 2 glasses of wine. "I have one more condition," declared Tosca as she approached the desk. "I want a passport for Mario so that he can have safe passage to France." Scarpia smiled and said, "Why not?" He put down the bottle of wine and began writing the document. Tosca leaned over the desk pensively. "There," declared Scarpia as he applied his official stamp. He then stood up and approached Tosca to hand her a glass of wine. He leaned in close to kiss her, but she leaned away. "What? No kiss for your new fiancé?" he asked with a grin. But his smile immediately transformed into a gape of pain and shock. "This is Tosca's kiss," she said as she drove the knife that she had lifted off of the desk deeper into his stomach. Scarpia fell backwards onto the floor, spilling both wine and blood all over the carpet. Tosca was almost as shocked as Scarpia was. She had no idea that she had it in her to do such a thing. From an early age, she had been a rather soft-hearted. But now that she was pushed into a corner, she felt a surge of adrenaline that was completely new to her. Tosca quickly grabbed the passport and headed for the door, but she stopped and turned back. Taking a crucifix from the wall, she said a short prayer as she placed it on the deceased Scarpia. Tosca didn't want his death to be on her conscience, even if he deserved it. In the courtyard of the Palazzo Farnese, there is a post planted in the ground. Tied to this post was the blindfolded Mario, who shivered as he awaited his fate. A row of soldiers was lined up opposite him, with their muskets shouldered. Spoletta stood by, ready to give the command to fire as soon as the sun rose above the eastern wall of the palazzo. Tosca was on an upper level, looking down into the square. "Once this charade is over, I'll give him this passport, and we'll escape together. Somehow," she said to herself. "Maybe he can cross the border first and request asylum for me." She watched as Spoletta gave the order to take aim. As soon as the first ray of golden sunlight touched the post, the order to fire was given. There was a loud bang, and the courtyard was filled with smoke. Tosca moved to another position to get a better look at Mario, trying to remain quiet and unseen as she did so. "Wow," she thought to herself, "Mario's a good actor. He's perfectly still." She waited until the soldiers left before heading down into the square. Tosca approached Mario on fast and soft feet. "Get up, Mario. We've got to go," she whispered as she shook him. When Mario failed to respond, she became concerned. When she took her hands off of him, she noticed the sickening color of red on her palms. She had failed to notice the blood earlier due to the blackness of Mario's coat. Her heart began to race, and she shook Mario even harder. Wake up, she yelled. Her heart sank deeper into her stomach as she began to admit to herself that she had been tricked. This was not a mock execution. Why did I believe him? She sobbed. Who's down there? Shouted a guard from an upper floor. Grab her, shouted Spoletta. She has murdered the captain. Before Tosca knew what she was doing, her feet were carrying her away from the square at great speed. Tosca tried to exit the building, but was blocked by an armed guard. She turned and ran up the stairs. She didn't know why she ran that way. Logically, running up the stairs was the wrong choice, but her gut told her to go that way, so she did. She ran all the way up to the roof, where 2 guards cornered her. She backed up toward the ledge, nearly slipping. The guards moved slowly towards her, fearful that a sudden move could cause her to fall. Tosca's heart was pounding so loudly in her chest she couldn't hear herself think. Suddenly, her feeling of panic gave way to a feeling of serenity. It felt as if she were floating above herself, looking down at the scene. Tosca's muscles relaxed, and she stepped onto the ledge. Looking down, she cried, "O Scarpia, we meet before God!" She then tossed herself off of the roof. Questions. Number 1. Why were the police looking for Cesare Angelotti? A. He escaped from prison. B. He murdered Scarpia. C. He stole the Pope's hat. D. He had illegal mushrooms. The answer is A. He escaped from prison. Question 2. How did the police find Mario Cavaradossi? A. They followed Cesare Angelotti. B. They followed Mario's girlfriend. C. The priest told them where to find him. D. They jumped down the right pipe. The answer is B. They followed Mario's girlfriend. Question 3. Why did Tosca agree to marry Scarpia? A. She was in love with him. B. She wanted his money. C. She thought it would save Mario's life. D. She wanted to be a princess. The answer is C. She thought it would save Mario's life. Question 4. How did the story end? A. Everyone lived happily ever after. B. Everyone died horribly. C. Everyone went their separate ways. D. Mario saved his girlfriend from a giant turtle. The answer is B. Everyone died horribly, because this is a tragic opera, and every tragic opera ends in death.